When you think of wild foods, you most likely think of plants, mushrooms, nuts, or even berries. Maybe some expensive ingredient you've never heard of on a menu. But wild foods are everywhere, in so much of what we eat, and even what we drink. I'm Kevin Schaap, and for me, wild foods aren't just a luxury, they're a way of life. As an environmentalist, educator, and professional forager, I know the best ingredients are still waiting to be discovered. You just need to know where to look. Today we're at Shelburne Vineyards, a Vermont winery that has fully embraced the rugged soil and colder climates that define the Northeast. I'm here with Ethan Joseph, head wine grower and vineyard manager who is making magic in this vastly unexplored part of the country.
Vermont's always been a great place for agriculture and local food, so wine in Vermont makes a lot of sense. You know, we've got some diverse soils and we've got some really old soils, some of the oldest around with the Adirondacks across the lake, which provide a really cool base layer for making wine.
What grapes work best in this soil?
Yeah, so we are almost exclusively growing these cold hardy Minnesota varieties, and here we have some Marquette. So this is a variety that was developed by the University of Minnesota. They combine, you know, the winemaking qualities of the vinifera, but then with the cold hardiness and the disease tolerance of the native North American grape. So they are very well suited to this climate. Go ahead and give them a taste.
Okay.
Vitis vinifera is native to the Mediterranean and is found across much of Europe and Asia. Its hardiness and disease resistance make it a logical starting point for most winemakers. It's where Ethan and Shelburne Vineyards go from here that make them so unique.
There's some other unique things that you guys are doing as far as how you ferment that wine.
Yes. Every year we create a different pied de cuve, or a yeast starter culture for each Iapetus wine. And so we go out into the field a couple weeks before harvest, and we'll come out and we'll pick, you know, the nicest looking clusters. We'll pick off anything shy of a perfect berry. And then we'll take, you know, some of these different wild flowers that are out here, anything like that. We have some feral fruit trees around. We'll put all that into a tank, and then we seal the tank. And then, you know, after 3, 4, maybe 5 days, that tank will start to spontaneously, you know, ferment. Then we'll use that as the source of the yeast for that larger fermentation.
So, and there's nothing else you have to do. You just literally have to pull it out of the field, put it in a tank, and it'll just do its thing.
Yep, it'll just start fermenting, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really indicative of letting the environment kind of dictate to you.
Well, sure, yeah. You get a real sense of place by doing it that way.
Yeah, no kidding.
At Shelburne, they take their environment seriously, but it's their yeast that's really changing the game. Their fermentation process, which culminates from a base of wild fruits and flowers, is a huge part of providing that taste of place that permeates everything they do.
People forget about it being, you know, largely an agricultural product. We're growing our own fruit and then also turning it into wine. You know, we're not just one or the other. There's nothing rewarding than spending 10 months getting to this point and then bringing it into the winery and watching people drink it on the patio.
Yeah. Oh, and maybe drinking a little bit yourself, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Even though Ethan is creating incredible wine at Shelburne, it's only one way wine is being brought back to its more authentic and natural state. I thought I'd continue my journey of Vermont wines with someone who's breaking all the rules.
Hey, Krista. Good
Hey,
to
Kevin.
see you.
Good to see you as well.
This is Krista Scruggs. She heads up Zaffa Wines and has stripped the winemaking process down to a 3-step philosophy: farm, forage, ferment. Today, I'm meeting up with her during the foraging step, and the ingredient being foraged isn't grapes.
So what are we doing today?
Today we're going to be gleaning some apples on this cattle farm and also mini orchard.
So this is kind of like the crossroads between wild foods and domestic foods,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
By gleaning, you're actually reclaiming something that is starting to go kind of back to the wild.
Absolutely, because they don't spray them, they don't prune them. This is the closest thing to foraging, is working with these apple trees, getting the fruit off and regenerating the life in it by each year coming back and getting it again.
Krista gathers all the apples she uses for her wine from these old abandoned orchards. By gleaning or reclaiming them, she's using unharvested wild ingredients to make a wine that is truly organic and truly wild.
What varietal is this that we're picking right now?
This is a Johnny Appleseed varietal.
Oh, this is the Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Both
great.
of them are actually.
So I've actually never had a Johnny Appleseed apple, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it a taste. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll do it
I'm
with
stealing
you.
some of your
Yeah.
fruit. That's like got a lot of sweet but really firm apple, kind of like a Honeycrisp almost. Yeah.
And the tannin structure is really light and feathery.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The two of us finish picking as many apples as we can load onto the truck. Our next stop is Burlington, Vermont, where we head to Krista's showroom to learn about how she creates her Zappa wines. And, of course, to give them a taste.
We're inside of your cellars.
Yeah.
And we're actually seeing wine being made right now. I mean, these.
Yeah, this is bubbling right now.
Yeah,
we just
living
put these
right
in.
here.
Yeah. So after foraging or gleaning apples, we bring them back here, do a gentle wash. You'll see me dipping them in water, put them in the grinder, and then they go into a fermentation vessel, which will start in a brute or a food grade trash can.
Okay.
And then they'll go into the press, and then they'll age in a demijohn.
Krista allows her apples to macerate for days or even weeks before transferring them to the demijohn. There, they ferment and begin releasing carbon dioxide, which creates the sparkling wines Zappa's best known for. Krista has realized it's less about cutting-edge technology and more about trusting her palate and listening to the land.
So this is actually a cross between wild apples and wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Or
mean-
wine with apples and grapes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So it is wine.
Yeah.
It's just made with different types of fruit.
Yeah. That's a big misconception that people have tried to separate like wine and cider. And honestly, according to the federal government, anything fermented with flowers or fruit is wine. So my goal is to educate people within this space and what I do. And I purposely put sparkling wine. I don't identify what's inside of it. And it doesn't matter if it's grapes or apples. It matters if you enjoy it. And except then it's just fermented juice. So this is 85% Frontenac Blanc and 15% cider. It's very salty, salinity.
It's almost got like a little bit of a sour finish to it. Yeah, like
Absolutely.
almost like maybe a saison.
Yeah,
right?
that is so funny you say that. I swear. I head conditioned this, and the beer world has really, really enjoyed this.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think what you're doing obviously is pushing the boundaries of what people can do with fermented fruit, and obviously kind of redefining a whole space here. And I'm assuming that's fairly intentional.
Yeah, it's very intentional, for better or for worse. And because, it's a learning curve for everyone. To understand when you're told this is what wine is and this is what cider and this is what beer is, and the definition is within what's in the bottle, not what you're told what it is.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
wine is one of those things too that has been for so long like really unapproachable for a lot
Absolutely.
of people, right? And
Yeah.
like making it more accessible, I think is like an amazing mission, amazing vision. Yeah. I think certainly with wild foods as well. I mean, this obviously being a wild food, these foods are meant to be really accessible to all of
Absolutely.
us, right? They
Right.
just occur naturally, and I'm just blown away by your ability to not over control this process.
To me, it's just about honoring the fruit and not trying to make it something that's not. When you try to make a homogenized product by adding chemicals, you're trying to force something. When something is wild, it is truly what it is, for better or for worse. And I think that's who we are, all are as human beings, and we should honor that.
Wine has been made for centuries, for millennia. Some evidence even suggests it dates back over 8,000 years. That means humans have been fermenting fruit and drinking it for a hell of a long time. In the last 100 years, though, it's become more and more cultivated, more and more chemically altered, and in a sense, pushed further from its natural state. But there are still winemakers across the country and around the world that treat it as the wild food it's always been. Whether it's in the way they honor the land in which it grows, or whether they throw the rulebook out altogether.